Thanks for making your way back in. I know it's always difficult to get you back in 10, 15 minutes from a morning tea break, which is actually the same time as lunch, but thanks for bearing with us. We have a busy schedule this morning, extended schedule this morning, because we want to fit everything in before we do lunch, because at that time the venue will be preparing, the hotel will be preparing this venue and the Royal Room for our evening event. Okay, so that's why we've crammed everything up front, and then we'll do lunch at around 1:45. So thanks for helping us stick to schedule. So for this component in this room right now, for the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be hosting Zoroastrianism 101. If you'd rather attend Zoroastrianism in Practice, a guide towards a better life, that's being held in the Royal Room now. So, okay, so in this first session, we're going to be splitting it in two. For the first component, Vada Dasturji Khurshed Dastoor, the High Priest of Iransha Atasperam, will be informing us of the journey of Zoroastrianism through the ages. A history lesson, if you like. The second part of this session will be a facilitated session, and I'll introduce that session when we get to that point. So for the next 15 to 20 minutes, please welcome Vada Dasturji Khurshed Dastoor to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, all of you. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizer to allow me to speak for 15-20 minutes. Past, present, and future are the most central and broad categorization for divisions of time. Today, I will divide Zoroastrianism, the oldest recorded religion, which seems to be on the brink of extinction, into these three distinctive phases for the sole purpose of ensuring that it endures survival, preservation, and continuation. I will attempt to sail through our ancient past, which henceforth I will refer to as history, because it is history that tells the story of who we are, where we came from, and can potentially reveal where we are headed. Almost from the start of the civilization, more than 10,000 years ago, religion has shaped human history. The existence of God or a creator is the central theme of all the major religions of the world. Zoroastrianism religion is the oldest revealed monotheistic religion in the world. It began and flourished in the prehistoric times of the Iranian plain, then known as Aryana Vaeja, the land of peace and serenity, the land that became Persia, one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world, where Prophet Zarathustra's Pitama was born. According to the Bundaesh, the Pahlavi text, creation evolved in 7 stages, and man was created last, but is the most superior of the 7. The first man in Iran, the Gayo Mard, he was blessed and guided by Zoroastrianism, and the Zoroastrianism, known as Salare Daman in our Avesta prayers, the commander of the creation. Our soul is always protected and guided by Zoroastrianism from the time we are in our mother's womb till the death after 4 days of our death ceremony. Hoshang, the grandson of Gayomard, was a wise and prudent ruler, and then started the Peshdadian dynasty, meaning the keepers of the law. It was during the King Hoshang's time that the fire was invented, and we started revering the fire. And the first fire to be revered was Adar Khordad, which was created by King Hoshang. Further came the King Jamshid, received the inspiration and instruction from Auramazda himself to expand human habitation by becoming a provider and a nourisher. During his reign, which is known as the Golden Era, his people were healthy, peaceful, and prosperous. He was a devout Mazdayasni Shoshant, or a savior. He received inspiration from Zoroastrianism, and that is from time where we started making our Sudra and Kusti. He divided the people into 4 professional groups: the priests, the warriors, the farmers, and the artisans. He was a founder of celebrating festival of Nowroz, New Year on grand scale, which we still celebrate on 21st March as Jamshedi Nowroz. King Faridun was a saintly monarch and a divine healer. He is remembered for using nirangs, the capsule prayers which we pray in daily life, that he had mastered through his divine intervention to ward away evil, for introducing the Merangan Jashan and the Merangan festival on Mer Maino Mer Roj to mark the victory of good over evil. This king before the advent of Zarathustra. Another Mazdayasni king, King Loras, known as the Mitrana Sahib, means the master of thought force, because he had tremendous power over his minds and thoughts. I have specifically mentioned these ancient kings because they are still remembered and revered even after a lapse of several thousand years, and they still remain an important part of our history. Since today our topic is not the life of Zarathustra on earth, hence at this juncture I will just touch upon to his advent in the shortest possible way. During the Kayanian dynasty, the power of evil, the Devayashni, had increased, and the Geo Shurva, the soul of Mother Earth, cried out in pain to Ahura Mazda. This is often referred to as a celestial drama, and some have even taken the liberty to say that this was the first poetic drama in the history to unfold. Shmaibya Geo Shurva Gerezda Kammai Ma Tverezdum Ke Ma Tashat Amaeshmo Hazas Sharemo Ahushia Deresha Tevisha Noit Moivasta Shmatanyo Atha Moisastra Vahuvasraya. It's a Yasna 29, paragraph 1. Unto you, O Creator, the soul of Mother Earth complained, where did you create me? Why did you create me? Who gave life to me? Anger, rapine, outrage, blunder, aggression, and violence are everywhere. There is no protector for me except thee. Therefore, reveal to me a savior who could show me a way out of this difficulty. Ahura Mazda sent Spitama Zarathustra to earth, but Mother Earth was not satisfied with Ahura Mazda for choosing Zarathustra, for she thought he was meek and would not be able to fight the deeply ingrained evil practices like sorcery, greed, cruelty. Ahura Mazda, along with Amisha husbands of Bamman and Adibesh, convinced her of the power of Zarathustra, and thus, Ushtana Jato Atrava Yo Spitama Zarathustra, hail to us, for the Spitama Zarathustra was born. The exact date of Prophet Zarathustra's birth is still a matter of scholarly debate. What is well established is that Prophet Zarathustra was born to Mazdayasni parents, Dogdo and Paurushaspa, lived and taught in ancient Iran. He was an outspoken reformer who rejected many of the beliefs and practices of the existing religion. He gave a powerful religion to the people of Aryana Vaja by reinforcing the teachings of the existing Mazdayasni belief system. Zarathustra originated the concept of one and supreme God, Ahura Mazda. In a time when most people worshipped many deities and believed that worship consisted mainly of elaborate rituals, to them, he preached a religion of personal ethics in which people's action in life were more important than ritual and sacrifice. I repeat, people's actions in life are more important. Zarathustra revealed his vision of the good religion in a series of verses called the Gathas. The Gathas are personal expression of Zarathustra's belief in the supreme God Ahura Mazda and conversation with him. They were originally transmitted by his followers and represent Avasta's oldest and most sacred teachings. They are central outstanding the fundamental beliefs of Zoroastrianism, for they are the most authentic expression of the faith. The Gothic principle includes warning against excessive ritualism and emphasis on the importance of the human reason, ethical behavior, propagation of good religion, and perfecting of the good mind. Of all the principles laid down in the Gathas, Asha is perhaps the most important. Zarathustra says in his Yasna prayer 28, "For as long as I'm able and have any strength, I shall pursue the truth," that is Asha. These simple principles are not difficult to follow, nor they do hinder one from living a normal good life anywhere in the world. In fact, they have endured the test of time and continue to remain Zoroastrian philosophy, encouraging one to lead a good life. Zarathustra's preaching formed the basis of one of the most influential and long-lasting religions the world has ever known. Worldwide, there are perhaps a few of us left remaining as a Zoroastrian, but Zoroastrianism has influenced Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam with its teaching of a single deity, a dualistic universe of good versus evil, Spenta Mainu versus Angre Mainu. The religion professes that humankind is designed to evolve towards perfection, but is complicated by evil forces such as greed, lust, and hatred. Human beings have the freedom to choose between these twin forces and have the responsibility to bear the consequences of their choices. According to legend, then Zarathustra was invited to present his teachings before King Vistas, who became one of the first of the many rulers in Central Asia to embrace this new and revolutionary faith known as Zarathustra, Mazdayasni Zarathustri. For 1,000 years after Zarathustra's lifetime, Zoroastrianism continued to spread across the Iranian plain. Zoroastrianism gradually gained wider acceptance, becoming the religion of a Achaemenian empire founded by Cyrus the Great. The Achaemenians established the first universal empire practicing religious and ethnic tolerance. After Cyrus the Great conquered the city of Babylon, he freed the slaves, declared that all people had the right to choose their own religion, and established racial equality. This ancient record, known today as the Cyrus Cylinder, has now been recognized as the world's first charter of human rights. It is translated into all 6 official languages of the United Nations. The Cyrus Cylinder inspired many government policies across the world, such as the English Magna Carta. As Zoroastrianism swept westward, it encountered the Magi, who first presented and taught the teachings of Zarathustra to the Greeks. It was Alexander's invasion was a disaster for Zoroastrianism. The Achaemenians were defeated by Alexander the Great, and the city of Alexander's invasion was a disaster for Zoroastrianism. The Achaemenians were defeated by Alexander, and the city of Persepolis, along with its fire temples and library of religious texts, were burned to the ground. The priests were mercilessly slaughtered. Centuries of Zoroastrians' learning was lost. The Zoroastrians were no longer the ruling class with a powerful priesthood. The religion was left leaderless and in disarray. The Greeks began to rule Persia, but the Zoroastrian inhabitants regrouped and formed a small kingdom, slowly regaining a stronghold over the empire. In practice, the Greek religion never replaced Zoroastrianism. After nearly a century of Greek rulers under the Seleucids, the Parthians came to power and ruled in ancient Iran for many centuries. The Parthian rule had helped to strengthen Zoroastrianism, and it was Ardeshir Papa Khan, the founder of the Sasanian Empire, who succeeded the Parthians, and during the next 400 years, the Sasanian king established Zoroastrianism as the state religion of Iran. Some worshipped Ahura Mazda in the fire temples, others turned back to Mitra, and others turned to the Zoroastrian deity Anahita. Zoroastrianism in its Sasanian form remained the religion of the Persian people and their kings. This was a golden age of Zoroastrianism, with as many as 30 million people practicing the faith. The liturgy of Avesta was collected into a cohesive unit, and new literature in the Pahlavi language flourished. The Arabs attacked Sasanian army in Persia and took over the Persian throne. The 400-year reign of the Sasanian came to an end. Over the next 200 years, the Arab rulers made conversion to Islam a priority. Those who would not give up the Zoroastrian religion were persecuted. The Arabs made Zoroastrianism very difficult to follow. Some faithful fled their homes to other countries or cities, and some secretly followed Zoroastrianism under the Islamic regime, only to be brutally murdered if found practicing Zoroastrianism. Meanwhile, Zoroastrianism started flourishing in India. We will now briefly visit that part of history which is termed as the migration of Parsis in India. After the Arab invasion of Iran, life was increasingly harsh for Zoroastrians. A group of Zoroastrian priests and believers left their homes and sacred fire temples and withdrew to Khorasan mountain in the northeast Iran, where they formed a community. For some time they lived there peacefully, but eventually they were discovered and persecuted there as well. They left the mountains and settled in the town of Hormuz, near the Persian Gulf. The learned priests leaned on the intuition and thought it best to leave Persia. The Zoroastrians sailed from Hormuz to Div, where they stayed for about 19 years, and from Div to Sanjan, Navsari, Surat, Khambat, Bharuch, elsewhere. In about 700 years after they landed in India, the Parsis were a respected and integrated community in India, and they ceremoniously consecrated the holy fire named as Iran Shah. Over the next centuries, the Zoroastrian community flourished. Gradually, they spread out from Sanjan into the surrounding areas. While working on this speech and reading through the various textual works, I feel a sense of pride and humbleness when I read historical accounts of the distinguishing Parsi traits as seen by the writers of different backgrounds. In different words, the Parsis are always described as hardworking and scrupulously honest. The Parsis won the respect of Indians and later of the Britishers. They established themselves quickly and rose in importance in Indian culture and economic life. Their success was a result of their strong work ethics and their respect for learning. Despite the cosmopolitan context, they held on to their Zoroastrian religion and traditionally. The most successful Parsi business people were also the most generous, and I would like to think that charity being a principal component of Asha, Zoroastrians have always lived the charitable life. Zoroastrianism placed women on par with men in matters of religion and education. Parsi families welcomed the chance to educate their daughters and treat them with love and respect. Priests learned the ancient texts by heart, although by now few of them fully understood the meaning, but even today the practice of learning the prayers are still there and continued in India. From the 19th century to the present, some Iranian immigration also came in small numbers to India and joined their co-religionists in a more hospitable environment. However, the two communities, separated geographically, culturally, and linguistically, for centuries have developed distinct ritual practices and follow different liturgical or religious calendars. We may want to put history behind us, but our present is an amalgamation of the past, which is based on deep-rooted and persistent belief system and traditional ritual and customs. We Zoroastrians consider our sacred scriptures to have immense spiritual power. Not only are they ripe with meaning, but it is believed that even reciting the Avestan words aloud or to hear them being recited by a priest is a special blessing that helps to fight evil and advances the cause of truth in the world. From the scriptures come liturgy and daily prayers of Zoroastrianism. To understand our present, I must talk about the steady extension of usage of the basic Zoroastrian philosophy or principle from our primitive community. I would like to lay emphasis on the steady extension of usage of principles or codes. This clearly indicates that the Gathas, then the concept of the Amesha Spentas, the concept of Asha and the Atash, the fire, and those that represented laws of purity have survived the most troubled times in history and have been passed down to us. It is now our turn to follow this principle and hand them over to our descendants. These concepts like the past, present, and the future. By focusing on the virtues represented by Amesha Spentas, we human should acquire this virtue for ourselves by living a balanced life of ethical thoughts, words, and deeds. Indeed, these teachings are illustrated by the faith's central triad, Humata, Hukta, and Varashta. Zoroastrian tradition says that the great fires of our religion have been burning since prehistory. Fire has been venerated by us everywhere across the world. Some of the basic injunctions of purity in Zoroastrianism are to keep the earth fertile, to encourage plants and trees to healthy grow, to have regard for the welfare of animals. Food should be carefully prepared with strict rules of cleanliness, since everything consumed belongs to one or the other creation. Isn't this basic Zoroastrian injunctions that every Zoroastrian should be vigilant in his care to conserve and protect the environment more valid today? It is interesting to note that the Zoroastrian doctrine is one of the strengths because it involves every member of the community in fighting cosmic evil through the ordinary task of daily life. Another reminder signifying the greatness of our religion. Let us move to view how Zoroastrianism is practiced by Zoroastrian communities over the world. The Zoroastrians of the diaspora are actively engaged in establishing their distinct religious identity in their new homelands from South Pacific to North America. It started with Parsi exodus from India and Pakistan after India got its independence. In search of economic and educational opportunities, most ventured to Britain and to the British colonies. Smaller numbers began migrating to North America and other parts of the world. Iranian Zoroastrians began migrating after the Islamic Revolution, with the majority moving to the North America. Today, although in numbers we are few, we are dispersed throughout the world, forming communities. Through the Iranian Zoroastrians and the Zoroastrians share common beliefs and practices, the communities in India and America, Australia, Canada, and England have developed different doctrinal, cultural, linguistic, and culinary practices over the centuries. Priests outside of Iran and India offer their services on a voluntary basis. They dedicate a few hours a day to tend to the fire and perform jashans and navjots. India is still the only country where priests continue to perform the religious, highly prescribed rituals in consecrated fire temples. The basic ritual consists of carrying of the consecrated fire, performing the yashna rituals, especially yashna, vanida, the higher liturgical ceremonies which are not performed outside India. This brings us to basic concern: what does Zoroastrian future hold for us? The greatest challenge for the great faith in this modern time is preservation and continuation. Today, the religious outlook of the community is divided between orthodoxy and reformism. The foundation of orthodoxy is anchored in its Persian Indian roots. Orthodox Zoroastrian lay emphasis on the identification of Zoroastrians as members of both a religious community and an ethnic group. In their view, the young are the only future for the religion. The reformists have a different vision of the future. For its proponents, Zoroastrian is a religion, not an ethnic group. Both groups look at the youth as their only hope and face for the future. Rituals, customs, and traditions are distinguished practices, very crucial in fostering the essence and continuity of the religion. The modern world sees ethical messages as real essence of Zarathustra's religious contribution to the world, while the conservative approach is to argue that one has to accept the whole message, the ethical code, and the rituals of the Zoroastrianism. Both groups recognize the dilemma, though divided over how to resolve it. Many in both groups have an understanding of the opposing view. Nonetheless, efforts to nourish religious faith by way of celebrating festivals and having social events, forums, are on the rise, but they cannot replicate the fundamental Zoroastrian rituals and customs. The moot question for Zoroastrian in today's world seems to be whether or not they can pick and choose any interpretation of religion of Zarathustra they want to follow. My belief is to catch them young. Development psychologists say that children learn general skills, mannerism, and even emotions through observations or imitations. Children are great imitators, so let's give them something great to imitate. Parents should mindfully talk about their religious experiences and narrate tales of the religious traditions followed by their families in their growing years. Simple acts like performing the Kasti prayer, observing the religious customs, the jashans, teaching children the basic prayers will go a long way to preserve our great religion. Our declining numbers is an indicator that makes extinction of Zoroastrian creed a possibility. On the other hand, though we are few in numbers and dispersed all over the world, we are a strong community that holds on to our tradition and adapts to contrary circumstances and challenges. If Zoroastrianism has survived the destruction of the Greeks, the humility and cruelty of the Arabs, I think it can continue to survive and overcome any external obstacle. What we need to conquer as a community is the demon that lies within, the internal factors. I fear plague our community. Together, collectively, we are stronger, for in unity lies our strength. Those of you who watched the commentary before the coronation ceremony of King Charles on 6th of may have heard who Edwards of BBC asked the Archbishop of Canterbury what were the challenges he faced in crafting ceremony that reflects to change. To which the Archbishop answered, and I quote, "The greatest challenge was to represent Britain as it is today and gather collective hopes for future while holding on to the traditional past. That was the challenge," unquote. I held on to this approach and repeated the sentence in my mind because to me it is a bold, stimulating, and refreshing outlook which, if put into action, can yield a promising future. While many are high-ranking, practical thinking religious heads are grappling with the challenges of time, those who are willing to bend a little and stretch a little will help bridge the gap between the two generations and between the two opposing outlooks. I conclude with a prayer that this astonishingly modern, stunningly stimulating, and remarkably refreshing model of Zoroastrianism lives on everlastingly. Zarathustra's vision for humankind was to see people as capable of rational thought and fundamentally ethical. That is, to be able to make right decisions about how they live their lives. For a Zoroastrian, the most important religious duty is to lead a moral life. In Zarathustra's view, life is a series of choices between good and evil. He urged his followers to choose goodness. Zoroastrians are taught to strive always to follow the path of Asha or truth. To be Zoroastrian is to respect and honor the truth, kindness, humility, compassion, gratitude, love of family and friends, respect for others and for others in the community, respect for the environment, kindness to animals, hard work, hospitality, and generosity. These are the good thoughts, words, and good deeds of Zoroastrianism. Blessings of Iransha to you one and all. Thank you very much.
I think you'll be on the panel, so if you just stay here, thank you. Thank you, Dasturji Khurshed. So next up, Dasturji Khurshed will be staying with us. Next up is a